Roll Tide, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Nascar. I'm Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from Tuscaloosa, and it's great to have Crimson Drive back as we welcome in our new presenting sponsor, Nascar. We've had the last couple of weeks off, but we're starting to get closer to the football season. You know that because earlier this week, we were in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Chick-fil-A College Football Hall of Fame for SEC Media Days. Alabama was there on Tuesday, and the Crimson Tide really well represented by, of course, Coach Saban, as well as players Jordan Battle, Bryce Young, and Will Anderson Jr. We have conversations with all three of those players, plus the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey, coming up in just a moment. But as we start the show, we'll begin, as always, with our headlines that are presented by RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. As I mentioned, coming up on the show today, we'll be hearing from Alabama players at SEC Media Days. I had a chance to get one-on-one conversations with quarterback Bryce Young, linebacker Will Anderson Jr., and then defensive back Jordan Battle, as well as the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. A really wide-ranging conversation with the Commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. Taking a look at the Crimson Tide football team, of course, really well represented at SEC Media Days. And then we see Bryce Young as well added to the Davey O'Brien Award watch list. He, of course, won the Heisman Trophy last year. And Bryce Young just last night on Wednesday picked up the ESPY Award for the best male collegiate athlete. So congratulations to Bryce Young as he continues getting more accolades from last season and starting to get on some watch lists for this upcoming year. Then looking across Alabama athletics and track and field, great performances in the World Championships, including Tamara Clark representing Team USA advancing to the finals of the women's 200 meter, as well as Jareem Richards of Trinidad and Tobago reaching the finals of the men's 200 meters on day 5 of the World Championships that have been held at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. So congratulations to them. Baseball, been keeping our eye on the MLB draft, and already we've seen Connor Prelip along with Dylan Ray, Jacob McNary, and Garrett McMillan all see their names selected. Some of those players can return to Alabama if they do not sign with the major league clubs that sign them, but congratulations to those guys, Alabama pitchers, being selected in the MLB draft. Taking a look at softball, more transfers coming in for head coach Patrick Murphy as Lauren Esmond transfers to Alabama from Michigan. And then we see Ashley Johnston, the head gymnastics coach of the Crimson Tide, round out her staff by adding Kiana George as a volunteer assistant coach. So welcome to Tuscaloosa, Kiana George, as Alabama gymnastics continues preparing for this upcoming season. But right now on Crimson Drive, we want to talk football, and we want to talk with Alabama football players. So back to back, we'll hear interviews with Bryce Young as well as Will Anderson Jr. and then Jordan Battle on their experience at SEC Media Days. Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roger Hoover now pleased to be joined by Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. And Bryce, first of all, how have you enjoyed your first SEC Media Days experience?
I've definitely been enjoying it. It's been cool to talk with everyone, get everyone's perspective, and had some cool questions too, so I'm having a good time.
Kind of the media blitz of a Heisman Trophy or the college football playoff, is this pretty similar?
Yeah, I guess, it's kind of the same level. Maybe a little more just because there's a little more walking back and forth. But again, I'm enjoying it.
Well, what has this summer and this offseason been like for you? What's been your focus?
I think it's really just been a big focus on the team and making sure that we're coming together, making sure that we're doing all the little things right. We're holding ourselves all accountable. We're making sure we're playing and working to our standard. And, I feel like that's something that we failed as a leadership to enforce last year, and something that we're definitely taking pride in this year.
Well, of course, you've done a lot of work in Tuscaloosa. How about outside of Tuscaloosa? Any individual work or the Manning Passing Academy? How do you feel like that's helped you?
Yeah, I was able to attend the Manning Passing Academy, which was a really cool experience. Just to be able to be around those guys, the Mannings and the counselors, it was really cool to learn from them and try to pick their brains and the other college quarterbacks. It's cool just to be around your peers and be able to share experiences. So I had a really good time.
Well, it's exciting that Alabama football is almost back. So what are you going to be up to the next couple of weeks as we get ready to start fall camp?
Yeah, really just that. We got 7-on-7s and workouts, and we're in school, so we're finishing up the second session of the summer semester. So it's really just going to be that, and then when camp comes around, we're 100% full go. Fun
trip over here with Will as well as Jordan?
Yeah, definitely. We got to take the school plane, which was cool. So, yeah, it's a fun trip.
Well, that's really exciting. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us. Roll Tide.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover, now pleased to be joined by Alabama linebacker Will Anderson Jr. And first of all, how have you enjoyed your first SEC Media Days?
It's fun. It's kind of what I expected. A lot of people, a lot of talking. a lot of interesting questions, but it's been dope, and I love it.
We saw you a lot meet with the media as Alabama's last season went along. Have you enjoyed getting that kind of back and forth and getting to share your thoughts on this football team?
Yeah, of course. I think it's important, to hear from players, how they feel about things and, what they expect and, how outcomes came. So it's been fun.
Take me through your offseason from the moment the game against Georgia in the national championship game ended to now. What's been your focus?
No, our focus has just been being committed and being all in. And I think this whole offseason, springtime, summertime, even a little break that we had, everybody was committed to, the Alabama standard and playing for your brother and not being selfish or anything like that. So it's been good.
Do you feel like the leadership you continued to show as the season went along last year, has that carried over into the spring?
Oh, most definitely. I feel like leadership has gotten even better. I feel like we kind of lacked leadership last year, but this year we've been doing a better job as a leadership group, being connected first as leaders in our group. That way that we can connect better with our teammates.
Who are some of the other guys in the group that you've seen really step up?
DJ Dale, Henry Toa, and Jordan Battle, and of course Bryce Young.
How do you like your linebacker room right now?
I love it. I wouldn't want to trade them for nobody in this whole world.
And then for you, when you're playing, how important is your very first step? We see you get so quickly into the backfield, but tell us about your first step.
My first step is everything. I think that's the first thing I learned when it came to pass rushing or anything. Just your first step is like the most important thing you got to have, so I love it. And my coach Al always tells me, don't ever lose your first step.
Is that just instincts? Can it be learned?
I feel like you can train for it, but I kind of feel like for me it's just an instinct, like it's just natural ability.
What's been most important for you these last couple of weeks as we get closer to fall camp?
It's just staying healthy, making sure, I'm being a good teammate, being a good leader, and make sure I'm still doing my job and still being Will Anderson.
Has this been a really fun time with Bryce Young, Jordan Battle, getting to come here to Atlanta for media days?
Yes, it's been fun. We see each other and we just say, "What's up, buddy?" and we just wave and smile and go into our other responsibilities.
Any off-the-wall questions, anything you weren't ready for?
No, it's been good so far.
Well, Will Anderson Jr., we're looking forward to you having a fine year for the Crimson Tide. Just thank you so much for joining us. Roll Tide.
Thank you. Roll Tide.
Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by Nascar. Roger Hoover now pleased to be joined by Alabama defensive back Jordan Battle. And first of all, Jordan, welcome to SEC Media Days in Atlanta. How's it been so far as you're just getting going through the car wash?
It's been great so far, just getting started, but I hope to have a great day today.
Alabama fans have always loved your press conferences and, whatever you may say when you get up there. What do you enjoy about getting to share with the fans about Alabama football?
Yeah, I just love to thank the fans, all the time. Thank the staff as well. Thank my parents. Thank everybody who has helped me get this far. And I just love to be thankful. All faith in God, of course. He comes first, and then family, and then football, of course. So just thanking everybody for helping me get here, get this far, and just to keep striving.
What's been the focus for you this offseason?
Off-season, just making sure we create that brotherhood around Alabama again. I feel like we lost that a little bit last year, so we're trying to find that brotherhood, like the history of Alabama. I feel like that's a big thing about Alabama, that brotherhood. We have to be together on the field and off the field, so we're trying to create that environment around Alabama again.
How good can this secondary be?
The secondary can be very good. We just have to make sure we keep our focus, week in, week out, come to play. We're going to get every team's best. So we have to be ready to, strap down when we need to, because the team's going to need us just as much as the team needs us.
What have you seen from Eli Ricks so far?
Oh yeah, he's been great. He's getting more and more comfortable week in, week out. He has been getting better, coming up to his meeting rooms whenever he needs to, whenever the designated time is. He's coming before that or after that. So Eli is progressing week in, week out.
Do you feel like you have more of a leadership role on this team, and how important is being a leader after what you saw in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I have to be more vocal this year. Last year I wasn't as vocal as I could have been. So this year is the main focus, being more vocal in the secondary, and not just secondary, but the defense and the offense as well. Hopefully my words impact the team. So that's what I'm trying to come back and do this year.
Let's go on this. What's important for you in the next couple of weeks before camp begins?
Yeah, just keep getting better in workouts. Stay on task in school. Keep striving on and off the field. I'm trying to keep my weight at a good weight, so I can be healthy for fall camp. Fall camp gonna come around, gonna lose a couple pounds, because how hard the practices are. So just maintaining my weight and everything.
I understand that. Well, Jordan Battle, congratulations on what has already been a great career at Alabama. Best of luck coming up for this year. Roll Tide. Thank you for joining us.
Roll Tide.
Great to hear from the Crimson Tide players as they really went through the gauntlet. Some of those interviews are recorded as some of the last interviews they did as part of SEC Media Days. But great job representing the University of Alabama by all three of those outstanding young men, Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., as well as Jordan Battle. Greg Sankey is, of course, a very busy man at all times, being the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, and this week is certainly no exception as he hosts SEC Media Days. And earlier this week in Atlanta, we had a chance to catch up with the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by Nascar. This is Roger Hoover, now pleased to be joined by the Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey. And Greg, first of all, it's great to see you. How are you enjoying SEC Media Day so far?
We're talking on day 2, so I'm not quite as fresh as day 1, but it's always good to be at the start of what we expect to be a wonderful season.
What do you enjoy most about this time of the year?
Just the energy. Everybody's undefeated, high expectations. People have come off a few days off, so they're in a good mood. You also get to talk about the depth of issues, both good and bad, present in college sports, and that's intellectually challenging. So it's just a fun way to start the summer, and I think it's the 4 best days of television during the summer.
What was most important for you to deliver in your opening remarks yesterday?
Well, a couple elements. One, noting that we expanded last year, shortly after Media Days concluded, added 2 universities that fit really well geographically, culturally, from a support standpoint, from success and expectation standpoint. Our fan base can rally around that. That's one. 2, that we're not just going to react to what's happening around us. We're well positioned, and we want to show strength in that position, but also be attentive that we may have to adapt, but we're not going to be out there pressing for some certain number. I think thirdly, recognizing that there's a bit of a challenge nationally with oversight of college sports. The NCAA's had a Constitution Committee. I'm not sure that did a whole lot. And as we talk about transformation, we seem to be stuck in historical thinking as we want change. So those tensions are real. And then lastly, a little bit of direct statement on what name, image, and likeness ought to look like. So the economic opportunity for our student athletes is meaningful, but we can't be naive that while there are successes and positive stories, there are also pitfalls and potential problems that need to be addressed, and that a national standard for how we support college sports is needed, and Congress can engage in that work if it's willing, and if not, we're going to have to look back to our states to establish some kind of uniformity.
When you met with all the head coaches, specifically from football and basketball at the SEC spring meetings, what was their feedback about name, image, and likeness and what the SEC or the NCAA can do moving forward?
Unanimously, unequivocally stated, we need to get boosters out of recruiting in this area, that this name, image, and likeness component is really modified the ability of our coaches to recruit in a traditional and I think a positive manner, focused on a program, focused on opportunities, focused on education, focused on making wise decisions, and these economic promises that have been out there from boosters have overridden. And so unanimously the statement was, let's make it clear that we don't want boosters involved in recruiting activity.
Once again, a proud year for the Southeastern Conference, not only in football, but all across sports with all the different championships that came in. Just what were some of the highlights for you this past athletic year?
Well, you start from the most recent, which is the Ole Miss Baseball National Championship. The great thing about winning the College World Series is you go like 2 months and you never lose a game, so you get to smile a lot. Florida's track team, indoor, women's and then outdoor men's and women's national championships was absolutely remarkable. The South Carolina women's basketball team that spent the bulk of the year ranked number 1 and then performed like it through the NCAA tournament. Once again, having 2 SEC teams in the national championship, and really the way both Alabama and Georgia showed in the semifinals against their next best competitors, I felt was incredibly impressive. We made really strong progress, I felt, in men's basketball. Just an incredibly competitive year. We didn't perform in the NCAA tournament like I really thought we would. Just matchups and an off night here and there from 3-point shooting. But we've seen enormous progress in men's basketball. And then really across the board, we had nationally competitive programs that went into the finals, semifinals, and almost every one of our sport top 5 rankings, which is one of our thresholds, being fairly consistent. So a lot of great support, a lot of great interest, and the encouraging thing is the level of young people still being attracted to compete here, so that the recruits who are coming in, I think, show great promise for our future.
Looking at Alabama for just a moment, how have you enjoyed getting to know Coach Saban better throughout the years?
He was at LSU when I started. In fact, he'd already been at LSU, so my first encounter was probably about 2003 with him. I didn't have a lot of conversation one-on-one during his time at LSU, a few phone calls to talk through issues. And then before I became commissioner, got to know him. We sat down and talked about agents in his office for an hour. He had called me when we were talking about signing limits and timing of recruiting. And those have always been thoughtful conversations. I think one of the misnomers is with our coaches call and they always have, a level of intensity or emotion. My typical experience with coaches, and Nick's a really good example, is pretty thoughtful discussions about the game. And since I've been commissioner, the ability to talk through, how do we shape the game, how do we think about the game, are conversations I value. And other coaches, in fact, every coach has that same access. Today before I introduced him, we talked about his time at the lake and how busy he's been this summer, and I have a place at the lake, and probably the same comparison of notes.
Final couple of questions for you as we visit with Commissioner Sankey. An Alabama alum, David Cutcliffe, now joins the Southeastern Conference office. What do you enjoy about having him part of your team now?
We spent 2 years looking for somebody who had stood on a sideline, gone into a locker room at the height of excitement after a win or the depth of despondency after a crushing loss. Had been on the recruiting trail with coaches and actually talked to a lot of people, got close to some, and then when the transition happened at Duke and we were in the middle of consideration, we reached out to see if it would be something that would interest David. It was really interested in moving back in this direction. And then as we talked to our coaches, you realize the level of respect they have for him and what he's achieved. When I walked into my first coaches meeting in May of 2003, he was the chair when he was at Ole Miss. So he knows our league. He worked in our league as an assistant, as a coordinator, as a head coach, worked at Duke as a head coach for a long time and earned respect. And what that allows is a different conversation. And what I've said is, David, I don't expect you to solve scheduling problems, to talk about kickoff times. We need to talk about the culture of the game, how it's played, what's happening in recruiting. And he's done really well at opening up a new level of communication with our head coaches. And I think that's incredibly important for our office.
All right, last question. Have you started sketching out your schedule for this upcoming fall, which games you may be able to attend? When could we see you in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, a little bit. So we have a week 0 game, which is Vanderbilt at Hawaii, so look forward to that. It'll be busy opening week. So we have a Thursday night game. I think my plan is to be at Missouri. Tennessee plays as well. I was at their opening game last year. On Saturday, September 3rd, we'll start here in Atlanta. Oregon and Georgia play, then fly down to Gainesville, Utah, and Florida play. Sunday, Florida State's in New Orleans at LSU. Week 2 is a trip to Austin for Alabama at Texas. And then I may sneak out west. We have a game in Arizona, which I'm trying to figure out how we can make the airline system work. So that gets me through week 2. I don't know if I've gotten to week 3. Obviously, that October 8th game is one that everybody's got circled, so I'll probably be in Tuscaloosa for that one.
Well, we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for having us here at SEC Media Days, and we appreciate everything you do for the Southeastern Conference.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to Greg for those comments, as again, he's been very, very busy keeping an eye on the changing landscape of college athletics as well as hosting SEC Media Days in Atlanta. But it has been a great week. Just getting to talk a lot of football, and the Crimson Tide well represented earlier in the week with Nick Saban, as well as our players, Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., and Jordan Battle. If you missed any of the conversations we had today on Crimson Drive, don't worry. The show will be available for replay soon here on our Facebook page as well as YouTube. And then the Alabama Insider Podcast is the place you can go to hear all of those conversations as well. The really easy place to go is just download the Varsity Network app from Learfield, where you listen to Alabama games already, and those interviews are available as well as part of our podcast on the Varsity Network app. This is going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Great to have NASCAR on board as the new presenting sponsor of this show. That'll be live coming up on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central, leading you up to football season. Then once football season has returned with game week week against Utah State. We'll be back to 2 shows a week on Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Central, right back here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Huge thank you to Ethan Carabin, our producer, for putting this show together, and thanks as well to Alabama Athletics, specifically their communications staff, allowing us to talk to our football players earlier in the week, as well as the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. We thank the SEC office for putting that together. But for everybody with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover wishing you a great weekend, and Roll Tide.